So you're bored with your current collection of Moras. I have a little fixed blade that might be right up your alley from BPS Knives. Well, welcome back to another video, folks. That's right, we are looking today at BPS knives. This is the BS1S, so we'll find out if it's a BS knife or if there's actually some value, functionality to this little bushcraft fixed blade. I purchased this on a whim. I found it on Amazon. I was surfing around. This is a Ukrainian company, so it's made in Ukraine out of 1066, I believe, 1066 or 1060 steel, high carbon steel. It's a partial tang. We got a wood handle. We got a little leather sheath. Great value. This package that you see right here with the leather sheath is about $15 right now on Amazon is what I paid for it. You can actually just get the knife itself when I'm making this video for $4.95 over on Amazon. So if you want to make your own sheath, maybe you want to do Kydex right out of the gate, or you're working with leather and you don't need the leather sheath, then for $5 you can get a high carbon Ukrainian made steel blade, you know. And from everything that I'm seeing, we're gonna have some fun today. I've been able to carve out a little owl for my sons with this, doing some other bushcraft tasks around the campsite. We're gonna look at this thing. It's in that under $20, you know, Scandi ground bushcraft compact fixed blade. We're gonna see how it competes with other Moras, pocket knives, and just have a fun time checking out this budget-friendly Woodscraft blade. Well, here she is, and as I've said, I really enjoyed the overall performance of the blade itself, man. I mean, the blade coming in at 3.66 is about what the cutting edge is. 0-degree bevel on that, so a true Scandi grind, 90-degree spine, just that nice profile. I mean, it's a beautiful profile. Really did the Woodscraft very, very well. And part of that is because of the thinner blade as well. It's a 0.75 inch thick spine, so it's a very thin blade. I mean, I have pocket knives that are thicker than this knife, so it's a very, very fine cutting, slicing machine. And I saw that in every task that I did, regardless if it was like food prep, you know, around the campsite. We went up with a couple guys and hung out and, you know, had a good time. So I was cutting kielbasa and vegetables with it, and it did great in that regard, where Scandi grinds sometimes aren't always as good when you get thicker blades for food prep because of how thin it is. It did great with food prep. And then finer carving, feather stick making, that type of stuff was phenomenal. And then I made a spoon with it. Now it was kind of an atrocity of a spoon. It was almost more of like a snow shovel to shovel food into my mouth. But did work with that. It did a great job doing that. And then I've been getting into wood carving, if you have been following the channel, as kind of a side hobby. And so I carved 90% of one of the two owls that I gave to my boys for Christmas with this. I only had to use a little scalpel size knife for one or two very detailed portions of the carving, but all the rest of it I did with this knife. And so I was very happy with how nimble and fine it was to do whittling and carving in that regard, because of the blade size to thinness to edge geometry. Did really, really well. So I was happy on every level, you know, rope cutting, cord cutting, it was going to do all that very well. Even when I stabbed it in and did like side to side, because of that, from what I can tell, it's 1066 steel with, I believe, a Rockwell of 55 to 57. So it's a decent, particularly for the price, steel, and it had good flex on the blade. I was able to bend it slightly and it would spring back into place. So that was all very, very good, guys. So for it being a small, compact Woodscraft carving knife, this thing excelled in all of those things and would absolutely be on par with any of my Moras or other, you know, budget-friendly Scandi ground blades from Scandinavia or other places around the world. Now the handle is 4.1 inches long. It's a wood handle. I don't have any data on what type of wood handle. It's unstained, really untreated, so you could stain it, you could treat it again. I think that this has potential to be a really customizable blade if what you see today has value to you and you're like, man, I got to pick one of those up. I think you have a lot of ability to you know, stain the blade, you can stain the handle, you can do different things. And I really like the little cut in. All the angles are really well done, guys. I mean, they did a really good job with my large size hands, and even when I was wearing my gloves, I've really felt like in control. Again, doing tons of really fine, minute carving. I had lots of different angles that I could hold the blade with, and it never felt awkward. It didn't feel too thin or too thick or any sort of sharp transitions. It's a smooth, very low traction handle. Partial tang. Now we're going to get to what that means in a moment as I did some batoning tasks. We're going to talk about pros and cons here momentarily with some of the things I saw, but it is a partial tang down to right here, glued in, and you can see here that, and the astute viewer will see that my first model had a steel kind of cap right here. This one you can actually see down into the tang. So some of them come with a little kind of steel cap right there to keep water from getting into the handle. That one actually is open. So that there, I guess, are some models that come that way. Maybe the newer versions do not. So you can tell that this is actually the second knife, and we're going to talk about why it's the second knife that I tested and reviewed here momentarily. But the handle ergonomics are really comfy. I really liked them a lot. Feel great. You could, because it's a partial tang, drill a hole in there, throw a lanyard if you wanted to. Again, so many just fun little customizations that you can do. And again, for $5 for the actual knife, about $15 with the leather sheath, it's not going to break the bank. So if you jack it up, it's damaged, whatever, who cares? Go buy another one for $5, and then you can, whatever you learned jacking up the first one, you can fix and do properly the second time around. And that partial tang and the weight is going to come in at an insanely lightweight package. This thing on my scale weighs 2.2 ounces, the knife itself, and then I believe it was 3.2 with the leather sheath. So I mean, this thing is so lightweight compared to what else is on the market. Even compared to Moras, it's lighter than any of the Moras, including the basic 511. That one is still heavier as a package and as a knife than this model. So it's an ultra light blade that you would never feel on your person if you did carry it on your belt or in a pack. So I'll hit the sheath with you real fast. It's decent. It really looks cool. They did a really good job with these two studs right here, rivets, keeping that in place. Decent sized belt loop, probably about an inch and a half. It's a pretty thin leather, good stitching. This is actually better stitching than I've seen on some like USA made, budget friendly, not like the Ontario I'm thinking of. This is actually pretty decent stitching. But again, the leather is pretty thin. It's very malleable. So it fits in there really nice. Goes down about 2/3 of the way on that handle, so it's going to hold it really nice and secure in place. It's not going to fall out. There's really no need to mold it because of how flexible and kind of thin the leather is. I don't know, like longevity, you may have to replace it, and you can get replaceable sheaths from what I can see for about $10. So it's crazy that the leather sheath is more expensive than the knife itself. So if it was ever to have damage, fall apart, whatever, I could see, if you weren't paying attention, you kind of got to pay attention when you put it in. Like you could catch one of the sides and then maybe pierce through the leather, and stab through the leather and then ruin the sheath because of just how it's a thinner leather. But as long as you just kind of keep an eye on when you put it back into the sheath, I mean, I think it'll last a while, and it does have, again, a more classic feel with the wood handle leather sheath than the polymer Moras that we're usually used to. And so that's what we'll do before we get to that last bit and why I had to buy a second one. And this will definitely determine whether or not it will be of value to you, what I'm about to touch on here in just a moment. But there's a Mora heavy duty companion. Here's a Mora basic 511. Definitely on the size range of the basic in blade thickness, handle, all those type of things, weight. But you can see it's a pretty compact blade. The handle is going to be shorter than on the heavy duty companion, again about the same length as the Mora 511 or a robust. But the nice thing is it doesn't have this little hook kick out that the basic and other knives like it would have. It has a more natural and actually more real estate to work with grip on the BPS over the Mora. Granted, the carbon steel that Mora uses, I would argue, is slightly higher quality, possibly longer edge retention. Now, all the work that you saw was without any initial sharpening, so it came wicked sharp out of the box. And then, again, I did a ghetto spoon, I did an owl, I did tons of carving and whittling and all the batoning and all the different things that you are about to see and woodworking, and never had to tune it up. So it was definitely holding a decent edge, particularly for the price. I was probably going to just throw it on the ceramic rod real fast or leather strop real quick after the hike that we went on. But after a ton of batoning that I did around the property and not having any issues, we had a catastrophic failure when we went out for a last test into the backcountry when I was using this around the campsite. Oh, there it is. I thought that might happen. Show them. Yep. That sucks. Okay. Yep, there it goes. So show them in there. There it is. So like I said, I was really did all my normal tests, but split a little bit of wood like I would with any sort of Mora for just some kindling, or, you know, shaving off of the backside of the spoon that I was working on. Did all of that, and I didn't have any wobble, any loosening up of my original BPS knife. And then I said, all right, let's do one last kind of wet, frozen piece of wood that is about 1.5 inches in diameter. And when we pounded on that thing, bammo, it snapped right inside the collar and broke. Completely broke off, sheared right off. We then popped the handle apart, kind of sheared that apart, and we saw that it was definitely, you know, that mid-partial tang, and it broke right inside the collar there and just snapped. And so I don't know if that's a bad heat treat. I don't know if that was just, that's the limitations of it. So what I'm going to do, I went out and bought one of those $5 ones, and that one did not have that little metal disc, you know, blocking out the tang, being able to see down the tang. So we're going to beat on this one pretty hard to see if I can break this one, and if it's breaking in the same place, or if it can hold up, and that was just a heat treat issue. I mean, at $5 and a mass-produced knife, there may be some, you know, heat treatment differentiation. So we're going to find out right now how this knife holds up compared to the last one. Okay guys, so I'm going to go through, this is about the size of wood that I was batoning through the first one. It's been sitting out. It was below freezing last night. It snowed on it recently. So I mean, it's a very similar type of wood than what we just saw when the other one broke. And we're going to split this just to see strength. I mean, Mora is known for being super strong. You can stand on them. I've batoned wood like this on all my Moras many, many times to make kindling, or again, just to work on your whatever it would be. Okay, second one, here we go. Nice and strong in there, no issue there. Do one more. Okay, now I'm going to beat on that through that knot. I do not want to do it, but we're going to see. See there, I hit a knot real good, made the whole knife kind of go sideways. So I mean, I'm putting major torsion and torque on that, more than this knife should do. But based off of our last failure, I want to see if that was just a fluke or not. So still seems rock solid in there. All right, folks, conclusion time. What are my thoughts now, having seen all of the original capability up until breakage with the really hard batoning of my original one, and now having beat on this one and not seeing any issues? Where do I say, where do I stand? Well, for the $15 price point, I think it's absolutely a contender. I think what you're getting is a cool, different look, different feel, more of a classic feel than the polymer knives that you're gonna find from Mora and other types of companies. Martini, I believe, even Hulkforce, things like that. You know, they all have polymer handles, which are tough, durable, and will last a lifetime for many of you. This gives you a little bit more of a retro feel. Now, I think for some of you, there's two camps. The camp that is, I must have ultimate reliability, and having seen this one break and just some of the other aspects, I'm just gonna stick with my Moras, man, because I know I've seen 10,000 people, you know, split all kinds of crazy stuff with them, stabbing them into trees and staying on them, and I'm not really worried about my Moras. This gives me kind of a pause because of how hard I am on my knives. So that camp, I totally understand. You're probably never gonna buy this knife. For the other camp, who's watching this and like, batoning is stupid, and whoever does that is a complete moron, because I know that it's kind of like a split camp there. I think that you're gonna really connect with this knife. And I believe, really honestly, if you treat it like a pocket knife, if you just treat it in anything you would do with a pocket knife on the level of durability, view this as just a full tang pocket knife. Do all of your carving, do all of your whittling, do all of your notches and triggers and traps, and just don't pound the heck out of this thing and know its limitations. You're gonna have a lot of fun and have the availability of a lot of customization that you don't always get with Moras or other brands that are similar to this BPS knife. But there is absolutely, in the back of even my mind, that slight limitation. Would this be the only knife I would take out for a through hiking trip, 200 miles? Probably not. I'm gonna go with a Mora. But if I'm just going carving in the backyard, making another owl for my kids, hanging around a campsite, maybe gifting it to one of my sons as one of their first, little camp knives, absolutely, and it now gives me another option. So something else to consider as well is that BPS Knives does offer a full tang handle scale version of this knife. For about $5 more, you can get it with the full tang, screwed in wood handle scales, and a leather sheath for right around the $20 to $22 price point. So for those of you who do beat harder on your knives and you want that durability, there is that option floating around out there on Amazon. Again, you can check out all the links below. Because they're made in Ukraine, I believe there's some, like shipping stuff. So sometimes I've seen it where there's a ton of them, and I've been following this brand for about 6 months now on Amazon before I pulled the trigger. So sometimes there's a full plethora, sometimes it's pretty slim pickings. You can check out BPS Knives website as well to kind of get a look over there. So guys, there you have it. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this BPS knife, whether or not it's something that you really gravitate to, connect with. What's your experience maybe with the brand if you've already purchased one of their knives? What do you like or not like about the design? I'd love to hear your feedback and read the comments below, and I'm sure the other viewers do as well. So let's have some fun and dialogue in this blade. And does this now really perk your interest, or is this like a hard pass? Thank you guys so much for coming over and watching the video. Check out that other one popping up. Subscribe if you're not a current subscriber. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook so you can see upcoming videos and separate content that I'm always posting. And stay tuned for the next episode coming at you real quick. Always remember, stay equipped, stay prepared, and we'll see you out there.